In 1999, Jeff Bezos was on the cover of Time magazine, Person of the Year, the golden boy of the internet. Everyone wanted to be him. 1 year later, Amazon's stock had crashed 94%, from $113 a share to $6. People started calling the company Amazon.bomb. The press wrote the obituary. Analysts said the company was finished. Amazon's own board of directors started quietly looking for someone to replace Bezos as CEO, and all of this happened to a company that today is worth nearly $2 trillion. So what happened in between? How did Bezos go from Person of the Year to almost bankrupt and then back to the top? That's the story. Before Amazon, Jeff Bezos had a really good life. He was working at a hedge fund on Wall Street, D.E. Shaw, one of the most prestigious firms in New York. He was a vice president. He was 30 years old. He was making a lot of money. And then one day in 1994, he read a statistic that changed everything. The internet was growing at 2,300% per year. Bezos wasn't a tech guy. He was a finance guy. But that number hit him like a truck. He thought if something is growing that fast, there has to be a huge business opportunity somewhere in there. So he sat down and made a list of 20 products that could be sold online. He narrowed it to 5. And then he picked one. Books. Why books? 'Cause there were millions of titles in existence, way more than any physical bookstore could ever hold. An online bookstore could offer everything. But here's the thing. Bezos had a great job. A safe job. A job most people would kill for. Leaving it to sell books on the internet in 1994 sounded insane. So he came up with what he called his regret minimization framework, which is a fancy name for a simple idea. He asked himself, when I'm 80 years old, will I regret not trying this? The answer was yes. So he quit. He and his wife drove from New York to Seattle. Bezos worked on the business plan from the passenger seat while she drove. He set up the company in his garage. He originally called it Cadabra, like abracadabra, but a lawyer misheard the name as cadaver on the phone, so Bezos changed it. He picked Amazon after the biggest river in the world because he wanted to build the biggest store in the world. On July 16, 1995, Amazon.com went live. The first book ever sold on Amazon was a computer science textbook with a very long title that almost nobody has heard of. Not exactly a glamorous start, but it worked. Within the first month, Amazon had shipped books to all 50 states and 45 countries. Bezos and his small team packed boxes on the garage floor, on their hands and knees. One day, Bezos said to a colleague, "You know what we need? Knee-pads." The colleague looked at him and said, "Jeff, what we need is packing tables." That's the kind of company Amazon was in the early days. Scrappy, messy, figuring it out as they went. Amazon grew fast, crazy fast. By 1997, the company went public on the stock market. Revenue hit $16 million. They had customers in over 100 countries. And Bezos wasn't satisfied with just books. He wanted to sell everything. Electronics, toys, music, tools, clothes, everything. By the late 1990s, the company was expanding in every direction. New warehouses, new employees, new product categories, new technology. And investors loved it. This was the era of the dot-com boom, a time when anything related to the internet seemed like a guaranteed gold mine. Companies with no revenue and no customers were getting billion-dollar valuations just because they had a website and a cool name. Money was everywhere. Investors were throwing cash at every startup with .com in its name. Amazon raised hundreds of millions of dollars. The stock price kept climbing. In 1999, it hit $113 per share. Time magazine put Bezos on the cover. Person of the Year. The head of Barnes & Noble, the biggest physical bookstore chain in America, had met with Bezos a few years earlier. He reportedly told Bezos he was going to crush Amazon. By 1999, that threat seemed almost laughable. Amazon was the future. Everyone knew it. Or at least everyone thought they knew it. On March 10, 2000, the NASDAQ stock market hit its all-time high, and then everything fell apart. The dot-com bubble burst. It wasn't a slow leak. It was an explosion. Stocks crashed. $1 trillion in value disappeared almost overnight. And the companies started dying fast. Pets.com, an online pet supply store that had spent millions on Super Bowl ads, went bankrupt 9 months after going public. Webvan, an online grocery delivery service, burned through $800 million and shut down. Cosmo, a company that promised 1-hour delivery of books, movies, and snacks, collapsed. These weren't tiny companies. They had investors. They had customers. They had offices full of people, and they vanished. Amazon was caught in the same storm. The stock fell from $113 to $6, a 94% drop. Think about that for a second. If you had invested $10,000 in Amazon at its peak, your investment was now worth about $600. Gone. The press turned on Bezos immediately. The same magazines that had celebrated him were now predicting his failure. Analysts called Amazon Amazon.bomb. Some said the company would be dead within a year. And inside Amazon, things were getting tense. The board of directors started to lose confidence. They'd quietly brought in a senior executive named Youssef Ghali as chief operating officer. And many people inside the company believed Ghali was being positioned to replace Bezos. Amazon had also invested in several dot-com startups, including Pets.com and Cosmo. Those investments were now worth zero. The company was bleeding money. It had never made a profit. Not once. Not a single quarter. From the outside, it looked like Amazon was next in line to die. Because most CEOs in this situation would have panicked. It would have made desperate moves, massive layoffs, wild strategy changes, anything to make Wall Street happy. Bezos did something different. He told his team the stock is not the company. And the company is not the stock. He refused to obsess over the stock price. Instead, he looked at the numbers that actually mattered. Were customers happy? Yes, Amazon had just scored the highest rating on the American Customer Satisfaction Index. Were sales growing? Yes. Was the underlying business getting better? Yes. The stock was crashing, but the company was actually improving. That said, Bezos wasn't reckless. He knew Amazon had to change, so he did something surprising. Instead of pushing for more growth, which had been Amazon's entire strategy, he hit the brakes. He slowed the company down. He cut costs aggressively. He killed projects that weren't working. He narrowed Amazon's focus back to its core, selling books, music, and videos. The basics, the stuff that actually made money. The internal motto changed. The new watchwords became discipline, efficiency, and eliminating waste. In 2001, Amazon laid off 15% of its entire workforce. That's hundreds of people losing their jobs. It was painful. But Bezos believed it was necessary. And then he made a promise, a public promise, that Amazon would become profitable by the fourth quarter of 2001. Everybody thought he was crazy. The company had never made a profit in its entire existence. 6 years of losses. And now, in the middle of the worst tech crash in history, he was promising profitability. The fourth quarter of 2001 came. Amazon reported its earnings. And for the first time in the company's history, after 6 years of losses, after the dot-com crash, after losing 94% of its stock value, after being called Amazon.bomb, the company made a profit. How much? 1 cent per share. 1 penny. On over $1 billion in revenue, Amazon's profit was essentially nothing, a rounding error. But it didn't matter, because the point wasn't the size of the profit. The point was that it existed at all. Amazon had proven it could make money. It wasn't just a fantasy. It wasn't just hype. The business model actually worked. That 1 penny changed everything. Not overnight. Amazon stock didn't magically recover, but the narrative shifted. The conversation went from when will Amazon die to what will Amazon do next? And Bezos already knew the answer. During the crash, while other companies were falling apart, Bezos was studying. He read the biography of Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. He met with Walmart executives. He wanted to understand how the biggest retailer in history actually worked. In 2001, he met with Jim Sinegal, the founder of Costco. Sinegal explained how Costco's membership model worked: charge a fee, give customers the best prices, and build loyalty. Bezos was fascinated. That meeting would directly inspire Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime launched in 2005. For a yearly fee, customers got free 2-day shipping on everything. People thought it was unsustainable. Bezos didn't care. He knew that once people signed up for Prime, they would buy more. A lot more. He was right. Prime became one of the most successful subscription services in history. But Bezos wasn't done. During the dot-com crash, Amazon had been forced to build an incredibly efficient technology infrastructure to keep costs down. Servers, storage, computing power, the whole back end. And then someone at Amazon had an idea. What if they rented out that technology to other companies? That idea became Amazon Web Services, AWS, cloud computing. It launched quietly in 2006, and most people ignored it. Today, AWS generates over $80 billion a year in revenue. It is the backbone of half the internet. Netflix, maybe. NASA, they all run on Amazon servers. The technology that Amazon built to survive the crash became the most profitable part of the entire company. Then came the Kindle in 2007, changing how people read books. Then Prime Video, challenging Netflix and Hollywood. then Alexa, then Whole Foods, then delivery drones. The company that almost died in 2000 became the everything store. And then it became something even bigger, a technology empire that touches almost every part of modern life. Here's what sticks with me about this story. In 1999, Jeff Bezos was Person of the Year. In 2000, people were calling his company Amazon.bomb. In 2001, his big triumph was making 1 penny of profit, and he celebrated it because he understood something that most people don't. You don't have to win big every day. You just have to survive long enough for your bets to pay off. Bezos once said, "I'm willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time." And he meant it. Spent years watching his stock crash, reading articles about his failure, and listening to people tell him he was wrong, and he just kept going. The dot-com crash killed hundreds of internet companies. Amazon survived, not because it was lucky, although timing helped, but because when the storm hit, Bezos didn't try to be flashy. He got disciplined. He went back to basics. He focused on the only thing that really mattered, making customers happy. And from that simple idea, sell things people want. Deliver them fast, make it easy. He built a $2 trillion company. Not bad for a guy who started in a garage packing books on his knees. So what do you think? Is there a company right now that everyone's writing off, but that might surprise us all in 10 years? Tell me in the comments. And if you liked this one, subscribe and hit that like button.